Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast. This week, I'm joined by filmmaker Stefan Van De Graff. Hi, Stefan, how are we doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Good. Thanks for coming on. So you contacted me, and what immediately pinged out of the contact I got was around you managing to sell your first feature to HBO. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that, but let's start with that feature. So would that be the one called Simmer? Is that
Yes,
the
that's
first
right.
one? Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell me about that film. How did that film come about?
So I was working at an ad agency at the time. Since I was a kid, I always knew I wanted to be in film. And so when I had free time, I was oftentimes writing. And I started writing this script. I think I probably wrote the first draft in a month or two and sent it to a friend, Nick Rush, who I ended up co-directing the film with. And he and I sort of workshopped the script together and decided that, we just wanted to make it. We were tired of waiting. No one was going to give us a phone call and ask us to make a film for them. So we decided to just go for it.
And what was the rough budget for the film?
So we started by raising $50,000 for it. And then we knew would get us through production. And then we raised another $25,000 to complete post-production. So in total's $75,000.
75. And was that private investment? Was that you guys funding it? Was it crowdfunding? How did you put it together?
It was a combination, no crowdfunding in that case. I had been kind of whittling away money for some time, knowing that I wanted to do this. And so I put in 25,000 myself. I'd saved up enough to do that. And then I went to a friend acquaintance who I knew was financially successful and who was also kind of in the media space, and pleaded with him to invest some. Oh, that's actually not true. I put in 20,000 and he put in 20,000, and then Nick put in the last 10 to do the initial 50, and that was enough to get us through production. After that, we went and raised some more money from a bunch of random individuals, but much smaller checks. These were like $2,000 to $3,000 checks.
Right. Okay. And you've give me the pitch for that film. Give me the plot for it. What's it about?
Yeah, so that one is about he's a young Mexican chef living in America, and his boss kind of clues into the fact that he is an undocumented person living in America, and starts leveraging that to ask him to do these black market sort of delivery jobs after work at night to try to save up enough money, essentially blackmailing him. And he goes through these escalating series of events that become kind of worse and worse situations until it obviously is going to come to a head.
Sure.
That's sort of the premise of that one.
And so the first thing that I noticed on that, so you guys co-directed that.
Yeah.
No, I've done that before. I didn't enjoy
Yeah.
it. How did that go? And how does it feel now you're not co-directing?
Well, I'm curious what you didn't like about it. Is it wrong to ask you a question?
No, not at all. So I did 2 co-directed, and I did them fresh out of uni. So yeah. I think the situation I was in is you're sort of always second guessing whether you're making the right choices. And I think if you're not on the same page, those turn into conflict, or even worse, they turn into unresolved conflict. So they turn into little things that build up over time. So I think with me, it was a case of it wasn't quite the right chemistry for co-directors. I know some co-directors do amazing things. So how did you find it?
I felt like what you said is exactly right. And fortunately, in our circumstance, we were on the same page. Nick and I had worked together on a number of projects in the advertising world together. We were just generally very good friends. And I think that we had, and maybe this is like a key thing to being able to even consider co-directing something, is do you have sort of mutually beneficial capabilities where there are certain things you recognize in the other as being profoundly better than what you have, and the things that they maybe lack, you are strong in. And in this case, that was very true for Nick and I. He had a lot more technical experience than I did. He was much more familiar with cinematography. I had maybe more acting experience and writing experience, and so I felt like I had a good sense of plot and performance. And I think that he had a really good sense of mise en scène and building this, blocking in a scene, composition, and we sort of trusted the other individual to see to their task, and so that ended up working. But I fully understand why it wouldn't always, and it wouldn't be the ideal situation. But when you're making your first thing, it's also helpful because, for one, you have another set of hands that are pushing as hard as you are, assuming that that's true. And not to mention access to more people. I mean, I didn't have any relationships in the film world, neither did he. But, just by nature of having different family members and friends and access to people that we could ask for money or support or to come and work on the film, you're doubling your pool effectively.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the strength I found from it as well was, especially having left university and saying, I'm going to make a film. You've got somebody else who's saying that with you, so you feel less like a fraud. You're
Yeah,
sort of both saying it
100%.
together. So
Yes,
you're
yes.
both doing it.
If I'm a fraud, so are you. We'll do it
Yeah,
together.
exactly. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
both frauds together.
Yes.
So made the film. The film looks. I haven't seen the film, but I've seen the trailer. It looks
Yeah.
really kind of high end.
Yeah.
So is that because of Nick's cinematography connections? Do you think is that what's made it look so? It looks like it's more than $75,000. I would say.
Yeah, that was a sort of a sentiment that was expressed to us a lot, and that I would say is certainly in part Nick's doing. And I think a lot of it is our DP. His name is Benji Allred. We knew him again from the advertising world, which was a really nice sort of toehold in the production industry. And we'd worked with him on a number of commercials, but everything he did was always so cinematic and beautiful. And he just really punched above his weight for, I think, we were all probably 26, 25, 27 at the time or so. And he just punched way above his weight. Getting him attached, I think, elevated the production dramatically. And that was the other thing, is that we had done so many commercial productions that we had good relationships with a lot of the rental houses. And so when we went to him and said, look, we're going to go and make this film, we're shooting it on a really tight budget and a really tight schedule, can you do us a solid? We had multiple places that said, yeah, we'll give it to you for a third of the price or whatever. So we had good equipment probably for relative to the budget as well.
Lovely. And so then you've finished the film. So talk me through how it ended up getting sold to HBO then. How did that?
Yeah, this is the thing that I feel like is maybe one of the biggest black boxes. This and financing, I think, are the biggest black boxes for new filmmakers, and it certainly was for us too. My background obviously was in like the digital marketing and advertising world, and I had done a lot of sort of like viral campaigns for brands, and so we decided to distribute the film on Facebook first, not knowing anything about this world. And we had this whole strategy put together where we took the hour-and-a-half film and we literally ran it as an ad. So Facebook had a limit. It was like a 2-hour limit for how long an ad could be. And we said, let's just like cut out the middleman and just go straight to the audiences that we want to serve to. And Nick and I recorded a little video at the beginning saying, what you're about to see in 15 seconds from now is the full-length feature film of Simmer. You can see it totally for free, and in exchange, we just ask for a share. So we started running the ad campaign. We did a screening that night. We kind of tricked the algorithm a little bit. We had everybody that came to the screening, all the cast and crew, pull up the video. It was unlisted, pull it up on their phone and play it in real time when we watched it, so that they had all these views that were coming in and full view through rates. And then we pushed go live on that ad. And within 24 hours, we had like 1 million views on it on Facebook. And there were thousands of comments and hundreds of shares. But one of the comments was from a guy who was like, "Hey, I'm a distributor. You need to pull this film down like now." And we're like, "Oh no, what did we do?" So we get in contact with this guy, and he says, "If you oversaturate the market with the distribution, if too many people have seen it, you'll never be able to sell the film." And we didn't know that. We didn't. I mean, it makes perfect sense now, and in hindsight, it's like, well, yeah, that, duh. But we didn't know that, and so he said, "Let me take it. I can represent it, for 6 months." And we entered a deal with this guy. And he didn't end up being the one. He wasn't able to sell it. He went and emailed a lot of places and wasn't able to sell it. But by that process, we kind of entered into the world of finding sales agents, and we spoke to other ones, and one came out of the woodwork that was like, "I know I can sell this." They had a really good relationship. They felt like they knew sort of one of the asks. And at the end of the day, I'm sure that they don't tell us this, but I'm sure that they bundled it and it was in a package deal. I don't know if the HBO executives or the programmers or the people on the acquisitions team ever saw the film, other than here's a slate of 20 films that are relevant, they're thrillers, they're genre, and we'll just buy all of them. But that was enough to get us on the platform, which felt like a really big win. And especially because between that and selling internationally in all the various territories, we were able to basically recoup. We've never really profited on the film, but we recouped on it, which was a big win.
Right. So there's a couple of things there. The Facebook thing is mental. I don't know what made you. Me, I'm so, or both myself and my producing partner, my wife, so sort of scared of the film getting out there, and do you know what I mean, and getting pirated and all this kind of stuff. And you've just gone, yeah, straight on Facebook, share it with the universe. But that's worked. So that's cool. So that's interesting that you've done that. And I guess, so for someone we might be used to either a traditional sales agent relationship. A traditional one would be where you give them your film and you never see any money, or there's self-distribution where you're hoping some money comes in slowly. With a company like HBO, which would be a good goal for a filmmaker to go for, I'm assuming that was was that a buyout for a certain amount of time, or was it an outright buyout forever? How did that work?
It was a 3-year buyout. And this was good. Like, in the end of the day, we waded through a lot of sales agents. As you know, there's thousands of them. A lot of them are not wanting to offend, but a lot of them are snakes, and they're just looking to take money from independent filmmakers. But there are really good ones and really trustworthy ones. And we were fortunate enough to interview with enough of them that we found ones we liked. So they were very transparent about the pricing and everything like that. We sold that film. It was just a one-time flat fee, $70,000. We obviously didn't get all of that because the sales agents take a cut and whatever. But that was for 3 years, and it was for streaming on demand only. So we were still able to sell the film to other territories. It wasn't international; it was only in the United States. But it was a big enough, amount to meaningfully get us towards recouping and able to start paying people back.
And it's interesting. Do you think what part do you think the genre played in that? Because I feel like a thriller to that level is probably a safer bet than anything else. Do you think that played a part, the fact that it was a thriller?
Yeah, I think that as I've learned moving on from that film, I can't bring myself to do more genre. It's just there's a whole kind of artistic thing in me that but for starting out, it made sense to do genre. And for people who are considering making their first film, I would say do genre, do thriller, or do horror, because even if you don't have a named talent, which we didn't, and even if you don't have a big budget, which we didn't, you can still have, I think, a disproportionately successful release compared to if you did a drama or something more artistic, or a romance or a comedy. Those are all much more niche. And I think that to your point, the evidence is, we sold internationally into territories. About 40-50% of the film is in Spanish. The rest of it's in English. In spite of that, I think it was still genre enough that we sold to Korea, and like there's like a Korean poster of the film that was made, and it was just like, yeah, that would never, I think, have happened if we had made a comedy or something like that, or it would have been very, very difficult.
Yeah, definitely. So now you've just finished a new film, One of
Mm.
Us. So you've got, I don't know if you've got a bigger budget. It looks like you have. It looks like you've got Kit Connors who's in Heartstopper. So you've got a name in it.
Yeah.
Tell me about the film first of all. What genre is it? What's the story about it?
Yeah. So this film is also, it's definitely not genre, but it does slot most closely into, I would say, mystery horror, in sort of like a Greek tragedy sense of it. The film is much more artistic in nature, and I did have a bigger budget for this, and I can get to that, how that came about in a second. But yeah, because it's a little bit more, I would say, artsy, to be honest. It was much more difficult to get it into festivals and things like that. And so finally, we're premiering at the Manchester Film Festival in March, which is really exciting. And they have, expressed that they, as a film festival, are truly kind of looking for independent voice. I'm sure you're aware, like a lot of the indie film festivals, they've been a little co-opted maybe by some of the bigger players that come in and are doing very kind of mainstream cinema and using it as a marketing platform. But we were able to find a home for it, which is great, and now we're laying the groundwork for distribution and everything that comes after the fact.
Sure. And so how did you put that budget together? And did the HBO thing help a lot in that situation?
Yeah. So one of the things that our sales agents on Simmer had mentioned, in kind of a candid conversation with them, was you're not going to get any more work from this film directly, but it is going to be a calling card for you in order to go and make more work. And you'll have more trust, and there will be a little bit more reliability there. And so nobody's going to call you and say, "Oh, sweet, you made a movie, you sold it to HBO." That's not going to happen. But what can happen is you can call people and say, "I made a movie, I sold it to HBO, and I'm making another one, and you can trust me to have success with it." And they'll listen to you, they'll believe you. And that, I think, has been the most true. So the budget for this one is, it's a little less than $1 million. And this one, we went and did it in all of the very traditional ways. It's a mix of equity and tax credits and government grants and production company money. And we didn't actually do any pre-sales in this instant, but we did have to do some kind of sales forecasting to get some of the government grant money. But this was like a much more, I would say, traditional indie film budget, where it wasn't all private equity, and there was a lot of other sources being pulled into it to get to a little less than $1 million.
Right. And as a filmmaker, you've just made one on 75,000. Now you've gone up to $1 million. Were you wandering around smoking a cigar? What's it like making that jump? Or did it feel more like the stuff you were used to from advertising, where you had probably a bit more budget to play with?
Yeah, I had some familiarity in the territory because of the advertising world. So the budget size wasn't very intimidating to me. Understanding how it reflects in terms of your cast and crew was somewhat familiar to me, just in like the size and scope. Simmer, we probably had a crew of about 15 people total, and most of those are just like very, very amateur friends that are coming along and they want to be in the industry. In the case of One of Us, we probably had a crew of 60 or 70, from start to finish. All of them, I would say, are very established, and they're very competent filmmakers in their own right. There was maybe some, I would say, anxiety, if that's the right word, but I don't think it was related to the budget as much as it was this, the material itself. And it's sort of an ensemble cast, that was new, that I did not have much experience with, coming from the advertising world, where you usually have, a small set of actors. In this case, that was going to be a bit more intimidating, I suppose.
Yeah. And so Kit Connors, is that through a casting agent, or did you go after him in particular?
That's actually a really kind of incredible story. So we knew that we wanted to cast around the lead actor, which in this case is Kit. He plays a character named Youngest. We wanted to cast around it first. Again, this is just in the pursuit of outlaying as little money as is required to attach as established of names as possible to make it so that whoever comes into the lead role could be, the most significant and feel like they're stepping into a project that is greenlit. It's got a nice supporting cast around it. It's going to be made, and there's some sense of security, because that's, I think, ultimately what actors agents are most nervous about. Is they'll put them up for films that are very independent like ours, but they will only do so if they feel like there's some reliability in the structure of the project. So we cast around outside of it first, and we went to Independent, which is the talent agency that Kit is rep by in the UK. And originally we had approached other actors. I had Kit on my short list as people that I wanted in the film, but when I reviewed his work, I thought he might just be a little bit too young for the role. So we actually went and approached a few other actors first. And we had one booked, but he got really sick, and literally 2 weeks before we were filming. So we went back to Independent, and they said, who else are you looking at? Is there anybody else that we can put on? And I had, again, reviewed Kit's work in the past. And I said, talk to me about Kit. I love him. I think he's a brilliant actor. I think he has just the right look. I think he's a little young. And his agent was just really effusive about saying he's the most mature person you'll ever meet. He carries himself as an adult. Yes, he's, I think he was 19 at the time, but like that will not come through in his effort, in his, his capability. And so I had a phone call with Kit, and it was very clear that he punched well above his weight in terms of his age. He's wise beyond his years and was extremely talented and thorough. And so cast him, and that has ended up being a really, really kind of incredible sequence of events, because I absolutely loved working with him, and I don't think the film is the film without him. So it's been very fortunate.
Cool. And
I want to say one other thing. Is it
Go on,
okay,
go for
Jim?
it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This is, I feel like, really relevant to for your listeners. We had a nightmare of a time casting through LA talent agencies,
Right.
and and we had an unbelievably good time casting through UK talent agencies. And in this case, it worked out because we were going to be filming in Belfast, so we knew that we'd be coming over to the UK, and so we could cast locally here. I say here, I'm based in London now, but the experience that we had, and I had another very established casting director tell me this, that in LA, the answer is no until the answer is yes. Meaning, when you can pony up and say, here's the money, and here's why you should even give me any time of day, then they'll say, okay, fine, I'll listen. And in the UK, the answer is yes until the answer is no. They come into it saying, our talent wants to work, they want to act. Let me see the project. I'll read it. I'll get back to you quickly. I'll respond to your emails. If the project seems like something that they would be interested in, then let's talk money, and we can see, and dates, and see, is there a reason to say no to this? And so that difference in attitude was profound. And if I was a young filmmaker, which I still am, but if I was literally trying to make my first or second feature again, I would say, talk to talent agents that will respond to you, that will be kind to you, that will treat you with some dignity and respect out the gate, and not just dependent on, well, how much money do you have for the project?
Yeah. Why do you think it's like that?
I'm sure that in part it's fatigue. I'm sure that if I'm in the agent seats in LA and I have 1,000 emails every week for this one this one actor, and 99% of it is, will they come in to my kid's birthday party? Then it's like, I can get it that maybe is exhausting. But I do think that there's maybe a more subtle piece, and that is that I think that actors and talent, and again, this might be offensive, but actors and talent in the UK more often than those in the United States view acting as a craft. It's an art form to them. And so they want to perform. They want to do it. They want to sink into a role and try it. And they don't view it as just a job. It's part of something that they love to do. I think that there's a slightly greater proportion of people in the States who it's about the money or about the fame or about the celebrity. And the craft is maybe like third or fourth on the list.
Okay, that's interesting. What's your plans with this one for sales and distribution? Is that sorted, or is that something you're exploring at the moment?
We're exploring it. Obviously, I think that I maybe take a somewhat non-conformative view to distribution generally. I think that is where so much of indie filmmaking and young filmmakers get stuck. Again, that black box of distribution, and that creates a lot of, I think, rippling problems that sort of halo out from it. So we're currently exploring two paths. And on one is a direct-to-digital distribution with some partners. We're in deep conversations with platforms that and executives at these platforms, but that are none of the mainstream distribution channels or streaming services, but that have a vested interest in having film content on their platform that would be a much more one-to-one relationship with audiences. We're exploring that path while in the meantime doing, I think, the traditional things of talking with sales agents about doing a more conventional, international territories, sell domestic and try to make as much money back as you can.
Yeah. So no plans to stick it all on Facebook this time?
Nothing on Facebook this time. No, not that. No, maybe not that reckless.
No.
But somewhere in the vein of recklessness, but it actually has, I think, a more meaningful pathway to recoup.
Yeah. And so looking back on the two features you've made, what do you wish you'd known when you started?
That's a really good question, Jim. I would say the number one thing is you just got to go do it. I think that there are 1,000 excuses not to. I have used all of those, and I got to a point where it was like I was running out of excuses not to. And I would say that for a first-time filmmaker doing a feature, even $75K is more than you need. We ended up getting to do a lot of things that I don't think we needed to do, but we were able to do because that is still in the micro budget film world something. I would say that just go make it. If all you can pony up between yourself and the 5 other people working on it and your uncle who has a little money lying around or whatever is 10 grand, which I'm pretty convinced that anybody in the world can pony up that kind of money. You might have to work harder. I'm not denying that there is certain privilege that people have. But I think that anybody in the world, between government grants and a handful of rich friends, and even just I'm going to save up for the next year and credit cards and all these things, I think you can put together a $10,000 budget. And I think if you have $10,000, you can make a feature film. And you're going to be making sacrifices all over the place. But I promise you that having a very sacrificed, completed feature film is going to bring you way closer to making a bigger feature film than not having that at all, is my experience anyway.